I had everything in my life. I was 16 years in recovery. I had a 3-year-old daughter. My husband was wonderful. I had a beautiful home, and I wanted to die.
Welcome back to the Level Up Life, Muscle and Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, Adam. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You're the reason why we do this. I have a really special guest today. She's a pillar in the Midland community, a great friend of mine, and a leader in the recovery world.
Thanks, Adam.
Camile Gerace Nitchsky, welcome.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
Yeah.
I love what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for being one of the many supporters we have. So, and I'm honored to have you on because you're an amazing human, and anybody who knows Camile can rubber stamp this as being 100% fact. There is an energy, a vibe when you walk in the room that it's just like I explain as like warm and fuzzy. It's like pure love walking through the door, support, like just that warm fuzzy feeling. So I appreciate your presence in my life.
Thank you.
Well, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
So, who are you, Camile?
We continue to ask that about ourselves, don't we?
It is.
As
It's
we
a
grow
regular
up.
question.
It is. I'm actually a native Midlander, which is unique sometimes. I grew up on Carpenter Street, 3 doors down from, it's now 1016's recovery housing.
Yeah, that's right around the corner from where we're at.
Right. So I actually, when I was 5, we used to play horses with the Arbery kids
Okay.
because they lived down the corner, and we used to eat cupcakes in the kitchen. Same kitchen that years later I would attend some recovery meetings thinking, boy, I didn't think that I'd end up here. When I was
Memories,
5.
right?
So that was very serendipitous and actually kind of really cool.
Yeah. Midland's a great community. I really like it. As far as my journey, like, you know, when I started talking about my past and being open and honest about it, there were a few people that were really supportive of me, and it gave me a little bit of strength, and I started sharing more. And the Midland community has really embraced me for who I am, for who I was, and they accept me, which is when you can be accepted by your community for your honest, true self. It's liberating in ways that, you know, I don't know if you can get that in the bigger cities.
Right.
I don't know if that's just possible.
I would think that some people would describe me as transparent. It's kind of like what you see is what you get.
Yep.
And I saw a T-shirt at a Pine Knob concert, and it was from Key West. It said Key West, but it was like, once the world's known everything you've done, that's complete freedom. And the whole world doesn't know everything I've done, but I have people in my life that do know everything. Yeah. And they stood in that space with me and didn't run with their hair on fire. They just sat there and held that sacred space and taught me how to do that for others. So that feeling that that way you describe me is what I was raised with my parents, my mom especially, and also with all the mentors that I've had in recovery and leadership in Midland. And Midland's a unique place because there's a lot of people that have I want to say spirituality. It has nothing to do with religion, but like a sense of being true to themselves and being connected to the bigger picture and having that purpose to help others, no matter whether they, you know, back in the day, it used to be whether they live on Valley Drive, because that was more the affluent, or whether they lived, you know, on Carpenter Street like we did. So I feel really grateful to be in a community that I can be who I am in my recovery world, where that's very safe, right? But also out in the community, because I don't hide it. And I've had people come to me now as a result of being more open with my recovery that either have a child that's struggling, or at this point now grandchildren, or themselves, or their spouse. And I'm always like, here's my number, whatever I can do to help. And That's what we learn how to do so that we can keep being inspired ourselves, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think as humans, we're made to serve others. Like, it brings us a sense of fulfillment when we can help others. That's literally what this show is about, a main concept to it, at least. And I don't know, like I referenced holding the door open for people, the level of fulfillment I get in my life, just helping someone in a small way, but also like what you said, when I'm sharing my story and someone comes up to me and it gave them the courage to just use me as a soundboard, at least to just get something out there that they're struggling with. Because I think a lot of the time when we are able to voice those things, it gives us the ability to sit back and process them and be like, because, my beginning with my light bulb moment was one of those where I was in jail, cell block D, room 213, I think it was. Yep. So I remember complaining to my bunkie about being resuscitated and charged with a felony. Like, I was blaming them for, they just did that to charge me. And I'm like, so that's where vocalizing it made me realize how crazy, because when it pings around in there, I can justify it and rationalize like where it makes some sense to me. It's a twisted way of thinking. But then when I say it out loud, I'm like, oh, and I think by sharing and being open and vulnerable, we give that floor to people to just come out and be open and honest about their own stuff.
We used to have a friend in recovery used to say, if you're trying to be Gucci on the outside and you're Kmart, not anything wrong with Kmart,
right.
But we could say garage sale on the inside, you're not going to be comfortable.
Right.
But when your outsides match your insides and you've worked through your stuff so that, because I still feel shame sometimes when I'm in a certain crowd where no one is no one's had my experience and there's not the understanding there. And all it takes is one person that I can connect with to go, we're okay. Right. But there's still some times where I'm like, what am I doing here? And if they only knew, and I do all that. And then that other voice comes in and says, oh my God, you've worked so hard in your life. I don't know what God's purpose is for me other than I'm just supposed to, stay in recovery and be kind to others and those basic things that you go, yeah, right. But, practicing gratitude. Back in 1987, when I first started working a program of recovery.
That was two.
Yeah, I know.
That's amazing.
I've had a couple people go, I wasn't born yet. I'm like, well, I was saving a seat for you.
Yeah.
But
that's awesome.
Okay, I just lost my train of thought. So they used to say, practice gratitude, make a gratitude list. And I went through the Wellbeing Coalition certification, the very first one with like 39 other nonprofit leaders. And even just doing that, I'm like, what am I doing here? I was like, had founded the Grief Center, never done anything like that. Had a massage therapy degree and an art degree. And a friend of mine was like, I think you should start a Grief Center. They were going to do it. Tony and Trish, John McKelvey. He's like, they use art. It's kids who've had somebody die. It's just like 12-step. And I was like, okay, I might be able to do that. And I really believe part of it was at that time too, I said to a friend of mine, I'm starting to squirrel here, but I said to a friend of mine, John asked me to do a grief center for kids. And he looked at me as somebody that I knew that had struggled with substance use disorder. And he was like, oh, when I was 10, my dad died. And alcohol was the best thing that got me through it. And I was like, oh my goodness, creating a space for children to talk about their trauma, talk about their grief in a peer support kind of way, right? I love counseling. I love all those other modalities, but nobody knows what you're going. It's just like our gig, right? Nobody knows what you're going through unless they've gone it through themselves. Nope. So having 6 kids in a circle and he says, my name's John and my dad died, and he looks up and they're all nodding. That sense of connection, just that piece, let alone that they learn coping skills and they learn how to even what feelings they have because they don't know what it is.
And I'm sure they gain friendships in the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So going through that process and, being in a room full of people. So I knew that purpose, I was willing to do anything in order to do that. Even if it meant I always kind of struggled with the imposter syndrome because I was surrounded by, Holly Miller and Maureen Donker and all these people I just aspired to be like, right? And thank goodness they were always down to earth and come on, Camille, we got you, so they didn't put it on me. My own insecurities that I continue to work on a daily basis, my self-centered fear, worrying about what other people think. And that's not anything like it used to be, but it still kicks in, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm in this room full of people and they're talking about gratitude as a coping skill. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been doing that for 30 years.
Yep.
And there's a reason for it. And then they did this, you had to do this strengths test. And there was 20 different things. And what were your strengths, your top 5? And mine was gratitude. And I remember thinking, I want integrity or I want compassion or love, like gratitude. And I watched this guy, he was like a PhD, whatever, 1.5 hour podcast type thing on gratitude and how it changes your brain chemistry and how it actually physically can change what you're feeling by changing your thought. I mean, I was like, okay, I'm keeping gratitude.
Yep.
And I know it sounds fluffy, but.
Well, and I've read gratitude is the mother of all other values. Without gratitude, integrity loses its, shine. So.
Gratitude is the light switch for me. When I'm in self-pity and I'm starting to I wish this was like this, or I'm not good enough here, or I have to do this, or what was I thinking with that, or oh my God, how did I put myself here? And then I just kind of go, wait a minute. And I focus on what I am doing or what I have that's positive. It's like old metaphor, but it makes that scarcity and that half cup full or empty to full.
Yeah.
And when I think about what are my, who am I, what do I struggle with? Abandonment. My trauma's like abandonment.
That was a big one for me.
Not feeling safe. I had, my parents were working all the time. Great pillars of the community in, a business. I was the last child, right? So I had siblings, God bless them, that had their issues and things flew and I was scared and I hid. And I still today tend to sit in a room. If you ever see me in a conference, I'll be, the door's there, my back's against the wall, and I'm just kind of got to make sure that I'm surveying the room. I've learned that my daughter reminds me that I most likely have ADD. I see that now. I heard a guy say at a conference I was at, he's like, I've got ADD and it's a gift. And I was like, really? Because immediately you start feeling another label. I'm defective. I can't sit still. I do too many things at once. I don't finish anything, which is not true. I can start 10 things and get 7 done,
right? Whereas
most people do 2 and might get those 2 done. And I still do them with quality, right? I don't do stuff half-assed. But he said, it's a gift. It takes a lot to keep me entertained, and I have many talents, and I use them all.
Yep.
And I have people, and it's almost, one time I was at a meeting, and this gal was like, that Camille, I hate her. She's always so happy. And my brother, somebody had said that to him at at a thing that he was at one time, and they were like he's like, it can't be true that you're always so happy. And I looked, I was like, I'm over here. I'm right here. I heard you. She's like, I know. And I went up and gave her my number afterwards. And I was like, well, if you want to learn how to be happy, I've got some things that I can share with you. But I called my brother Wade. I'm like, guess what? And he's like, what? I'm like, I'm in the somebody hates me because I'm too happy club. I mean, and I wanted to say, do you listen to me? Like some days I'm in the depths of despair. But because we have this beautiful community that I can share what's going on with me, I don't leave with it.
It's funny you mentioned the being happy thing, because in the morning I'm like, most of the time a little overly happy, but I get to do something I really love. And, I've had people be like, why are you so happy? Like it bothers them. And I don't know if that's because they want that or if, maybe they don't understand the why or any of that, but I wanted to go back to the shame part. So I have a little story to share with you. It's very recent for me. So every time I would get clean, sober, not into recovery, and I like to differentiate the two with recovery being an active change in thinking, abstinence just being, not having chemicals in my body. So every time I would just be abstinent, I would put on some weight. And then when I would relapse, I'd lose weight. So you could almost track this trend by my body weight. You could look at me and say, Adam's using if I was down. Or, oh, looks like he's abstinent now. So over the course of years, and even before that, my childhood, I was the little guy. Everybody was like this much taller than me. I graduated at 135 pounds, so I was a small person in my graduating class, and there's 6'2", there's 200 pound, and I got picked on for being small, and there were some pretty deep wounds from that I thought were healed. Well, I'm going through this process of changing some of my eating habits. Not that I eat bad, but I can do better, right? So shifted to more whole foods, cut out processed sugars, and within 3 weeks, I'm down 10 pounds. So people start noticing like, hey, you're, it looks like you're down weight. And to most people, on any sort of fitness journey, that's a good thing, right? But there's people out there that, like me, automatically and it's nothing these individuals did, but it's like that. It just it reopens that wound a little bit from my childhood. And then even deeper on this topic, my mom, right? My mom experienced a tremendous amount of trauma because of my using. So whenever she sees me drop weight, I can be healthy. And I don't know this for a fact, but she's told me a little bit times before, she gets this pit in her stomach and this like tightness in her chest. Like, is he using again? Just this fear. And that's because of my actions. And that's where the shame part comes in, because, man, like all the stuff I was doing, and I was like, man, using is my choice. It's my body. The government shouldn't be able to tell me what I can and can't do. My choices aren't affecting anybody else, but they were. I was traumatizing my mom for 15 years. So then I feel this wave of shame. Like, oh, I can't believe I did that to my mom,
I can feel it just as you're saying that.
And then it's like, well, this is where that amends comes in, where I can change. I have changed, and I can continue on this path, and that is that living amends, where I'm just, like, I can reassure my mom, hey, I'm not using, I'll pee in a cup anytime you want. Like, the behaviors don't match, but in the people that commented on me, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to open that wound, like, didn't mean to cause you pain, and that wasn't their intention. It's not their fault. And I don't even place blame on the kids that picked on me, because they were just trying to survive growing up, and they didn't really know. And you could blame it on their parents for not teaching them not to bully. And then, you can keep working down the line of accountability, who's to blame, but finger pointing never really accomplishes anything. So I like to think is healing, like it's not linear, right? And this is just that wound I thought was healed. I'm just kind of spiraling back around to it, and it's growth at its core. I grew a little bit more, and now I understand, like, I question this. How do you compliment someone? Like,
If
someone's losing weight in my industry, in the fitness industry, and that gives them that hit of dopamine when they hear like the compliment, oh, you look great, you're losing weight, that hit of dopamine that they get, that feel good, then that can kind of lead to seeking that out because it feels good, like what happens if they start to put weight back on? And that can lead to depression.
Right.
And
Well, you're
anxiety.
talking my language right now.
And it's like,
I mean, big time.
But I'm a maybe an overthinker. So one little event like this creates all these different questions for me. And, that's what this is about, like open discussion, right? So
I was bullied as a kid, was chubby. My whole family, my mom, I mean, it was the mentality of, we had a candy drawer that was a reward drawer. I call my sister my first drug dealer. She used to send me to Pat's Grocery, which is next to Lapels. It's burned down, with $5. And it would have a list. She'd give me a list. I couldn't even read yet. It had a list of, 2 Zagnut bars, 2 paydays, of $5 worth of 5. The candy bars were 5 cents. And I would get like 50 cents for me. And I'd get penny candy. So my first brown bag was about this big, and I would bring it back home, and my mom had no idea that I had a stash of sugar up in my room. And my sister also was very large. So when chaos did start to happen in the family, I hid behind her because she was the safest one. So weight became safety. It was love. It was so many messed up things, right? So Weight Watchers my whole life, learned that food was illegal. I mean, COVID 2020, me and a couple other friends started doing the Marianne Williamson's A Course in Weight Loss, or 21 Spiritual Lessons. And it's kind of like, it has a whole 12-step vibe, right? It's about fear and about love and no deprivation, because that sets me up. And you can only do that for so long. Yeah. And then I start getting attention because I'm thinner. And even with, I'm happily married. I remember, being married with my beautiful husband, Patrick, and another guy that was married. He hugs me and he's like, ooh, we could start dating. And I could immediately, like, just by the way a man hugs me when I'm in that more desirable body, like whether they're safe or not. And so I tend to pack it back on for safety because of abuse as a child, sexual, all that stuff that probably 80% of the country has experienced, but no one talks about it. And so when somebody says, oh my God, Camile, you look so great. I actually had somebody scream across the Center for the Arts lobby, oh my God, you've lost so much weight. I'd lost like 50 pounds. And I remember thinking, like, I was embarrassed. And it's like, you get that attention. It's like, well, what was I before? Like, how come I wasn't able to just get attention as a person in however body I have? And so over the last 5 years, I've slowly lost a bunch of weight. But then also in the last, I'm working a new job. I'm at a desk. I'm kind of blaming it on that. I don't know, but it's a change. And when I had gained a bunch when I worked at the grief center, to the point where it wasn't healthy for me. And for me, eating food that isn't healthy directly affects my brain and exaggerates the depression that I sometimes experience. It is a direct link to what I put physically in my body and whether or not I'm doing some type of movement, and it doesn't have to be run of 2 miles. It can be throw music on in my kitchen and just dance randomly for 5 or 6 minutes. Or it's like, oh, that was great. I'm doing another song. And next thing you know, I've been dancing for 20 minutes. And that's movement, right? So when I'm doing those things, I feel better on the inside. Most of the times when people say something now, I just say, thank you. I don't make it, sometimes I'll go, oh, actually I'm gaining it back. I'm gaining weight. Like, you're wrong. And then my body hears that. Because I've been doing massage for 30 some years, and your body hears every word and it hears every thought that you say. So as soon as I start to say, oh, I'm gaining it back, I'm setting myself to gain it back. So I stopped myself I've never kind of done a 5-year journey where it wasn't a diet, a restriction, or whatever. It's been a mindset shift, and that there's no bad or good foods. I'm not good if oh, I did my exercise this and I did that and I only ate that and I did good today. It has been such a change for me to just be like, I was really loving to myself today. And it felt like I was more in balance.
Yeah.
Or I've been really kind of off the rails lately because I've been under a little struggle, and I seek out people that I do this work with, and there's love and there's a sense of acceptance, and I know that I'm going to be okay. And I'm not a measure of how I look.
Right.
Right. And so when people say, when I see them, I don't want to say, oh my God, you've lost some. I say, you're glowing. And they kind of look at me, and sometimes they might say, yeah, I've been on this thing and I've lost some weight. I'm like, that's awesome. Or sometimes I'll say, wow, you look really healthy, because it's not about, oh, you're thin now and you look this or you look that. Or
well, and thin, that's I could talk about
we could have a whole
fitness
show
culture
just on that.
and
yep.
Food and all that, but thin doesn't equal healthy.
We know that, right?
Muscle bound guys, girls doesn't equal healthy, because going back to like what you said, Gucci on the outside, you're talking in more of a mental space. Well, you can say
physical. You
can say that too. You can look really good on the outside, and then you go get your blood work done, and it's terrible.
Yeah, okay.
So, looking at just physical appearances, health is doesn't make sense, because there's more to it, right? It's like trying to say I read this book just because I read the cover.
Right. Well, diabetes is a real problem in our society today. And my sister, my oldest sister, who was my drug dealer, my abuser, my all that, and who, when I go back and do tapping or whatever, I'm like, I'm doing this tapping challenge this week. And they actually have you eat a food that reminds you of someone you love. That is a food that you wouldn't normally let yourself eat, and my sister was right there. And I had chocolate chips, and then you bring the feeling that you get from that melty goodness, and you put that in your heart, and you think of it as that feeling with the person. And then you pass that feeling back and forth with the person. You act like they're sitting there. And so many awarenesses came up. Like, my sister was like a parent because my parents weren't there.
Right.
And at the same time, she did things to me that I couldn't trust people anymore, and she also was my person that connected me to, I was just like, I thought I've done a lot of work with this stuff.
Right.
And when you said that about the spiral, I've learned that my spiral is kind of like a cone shape. And I started here and I'm going around and I'm like, oh my God, I'm still back to self-centered fear. I've worked on this for 30 years. And I come back around, and it's just it's a different view.
Yep.
You're going to still have stuff, but you're still spiraling. I don't like to think of up is good and down is bad, but getting to the top of the mountain to see the view is kind of cool.
Yep.
Right? Although one sister's a caver, and she'd say, oh no, it's really cool down in the
earth. Right.
But so however you want, you might have one that goes this way or whatever, but you're still spiraling around, and you're still going to see some of that. I think some of my stuff, judgment, scarcity, that not feeling enough. I'm like, really, I'm still working on this. I think they're lifelong lessons, and they get better and better and less. I was just at Wake Up, right? And we were talking, and this woman said, well, I'm not judgmental anymore. And I was like, wow, good for you. And she's like, well, I'm trying not to be.
Right.
She's
better.
Right. And
than she was
and when I
yesterday.
am being that way, now I know it's not about that the other person isn't the standard, or, I'm questioning what are you doing wearing with that, with that? What were you thinking? It's like something's going on with me that I don't feel good about me. So I'm bringing out that comparison stick will kill us.
Oh yeah.
I heard the other day, comparison kills joy.
Yep.
Right. But I also know that my insecurity, or when I'm not in a place of love, is trying to find my place. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not as good as that, but I'm not as bad as that. So, and it's messed up,
right?
But it was a coping skill, and it was also about being safe,
too,
right?
like...
Right. The comparison. That's one of those, like, really, I'm still doing that, and we just have to just keep giving ourselves grace and realize I'm still working on it, work in progress, and I hope I'm always still working on something till the day I die. I'm coming to the point where I'm kind of retirement age, I'm not going to, what does that mean? What did somebody say it the other day? Today she said recalibrating her life. I was like, it seems like we do that every 6 months, right? Our inventory, our personal inventory. And usually it's the things that are troubling us. Like we don't go, God, I'm so happy. I wonder why that is. It's like, oh, I got this issue and I feel bad. And so what can I do to work on it? And a lot of times I might try to, we say in our house, this is the Gerace coat of arms. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. And my brother and I just laugh about it. And actually, this is this is, and there's power in that because I can't change anything else outside of me. I got to stay in my little square, and being a parent has taught me a lot with that. Being a good friend, being a mentor in recovery, being a leader rather than a boss.
Well, I heard something from someone I consider a leader, and they said, relate, don't compare. And that's one of the principles that I literally live by, because the other thing, is just leading with empathy. I try to. I'm not perfect because, the example I'll use is I'm driving down the road and someone cuts me off. My first thought, and another phrase that I like is first thought wrong, is
thanks, Mark.
What the, and I want to run them off the road. And I'm like, oh, it'd be real cool, like GTA style, have a rocket launcher on my truck right now, which I wouldn't actually do. But in that moment, my anger comes up. And then I've trained my brain to actually step back, okay, leading with empathy. Why would they be in such a rush? Maybe their child's in the hospital. Maybe their husband just fell at home. You could speculate millions of reasons, I'm sure, that this individual is in a rush to get home. So that gives me a little bit of patience. And it just it gives me the ability to sit back a little bit and be like, I hope they're okay. Hope whatever they're in a rush for works out for them really well.
After you.
Yep.
Yep.
So, and
I do the same thing. But mine always is maybe they're coming from their mother's funeral.
Yeah.
Because I know the day that I actually had somebody else drive me, but then the days after that, I found myself at the stop sign at Jerome and Carpenter, and my house was 6 blocks away, and my parents' house was 3 doors down, and I couldn't move. I was, the grief was so intense, I couldn't remember which way I was supposed to go. And so you just never know what that person's going through.
Yep. Then to be able to be like, relate it to your experience and then show empathy is like, it's a skill that you have to really cultivate, because going back to that initial response is always emotional and
charged.
Yeah. So
it's electricity to it. Like,
I like to think of my emotions. Like I'm this observer on the side of the creek, right? I got my feet in the water and the water's just running over my feet, and I'm chilling. And those are my emotions. And I try and watch them just go by, because then I'm not reactive. Then I'm, I sit back and I'm like, why am I feeling this for this? Like, this seemed really insignificant, but why am I so, because I haven't given myself a single moment in the last 7 days to just take a breath and recharge. So it's that pressure that's building. I need to take a step back and just decompress, reflect.
Don't you feel, so that's kind of a form of meditation, obviously. I would have to say in the last 10 years, maybe 15 or so, I had met a woman on a recovery retreat, and she said, if you got 20 years in recovery and you still want to die and you're still having suicidal thoughts for whatever reason, you're not meditating enough. And I was just like, oh, come on. But I had gone through a really dark time. And I had everything in my life. I was 16 years in recovery. I had a 3-year-old daughter. My husband was wonderful. I had a beautiful home, and I wanted to die. and all the things, my daughter was what I would live for. And at the same time, I felt like I was a horrible mother for all sorts of different reasons and inadequate and all that. And the reason I wanted to die was also the same reason that I wanted to live, right? And people that knew me saw me and were like, and one time Patrick came home and I was going through a closet and one of his hunting guns fell out towards me. It was in the case and stuff. And I was like, and there was that thought. And he came home that night and I was sitting at the table and I said, you need to get the guns out of the house. And that was really hard to admit because I felt like I was weak. And actually I was strong by doing that, right?
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage.
And he just was so surprised. And we talked about it and I did some things that I needed to do, went back to therapy. This is going to sound crazy. Stopped eating sugar and flour and just kind of really focused on being healthier with that. It was a huge piece. Mm-hmm. And slowly was able to come out of that depression. When I look back now, it was a perfect storm. My mom had died just before my daughter was born, the year before. When my daughter was born, being a body worker, I was like, oh, don't feel sad. Like my grief got nipped. Mm-hmm. Like I wasn't. And so then when she was born, and I'm like, where's my mom? Like all my friends, they all have moms and grandmas. I'm like, where's my mom? I don't even know if my mom would have been part of that stage. She was like, if you're having kids, I'm not babysitting, Right. But it was just a loss. And I just kind of kept stuffing it down. And 3 years later, it was October, which is a tough time of the year for me. Had trauma stuff as a child. Happened on Halloween. It was my mom's birthday, the anniversary of her death, my parents' anniversary. My golden retriever that was my recovery dog had just died. It was like the perfect storm. I didn't have any defense against it.
Now let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Pine Haven Assisted Living. At Pine Haven Assisted Living, they believe in making every resident feel at home. Nestled in the peaceful countryside of Hemlock, Michigan, they offer compassionate care in a family-like environment where residents can enjoy independence with the support they need. Registered nurse-owned and operated, their team provides personalized care, home-cooked meals, and a range of activities to ensure your loved ones continue to live a fulfilling life. They also have alpacas and llamas on site to enrich the lives of their residents. Experience the warmth and comfort of Pine Haven. Call them today at 989-295-6632. That's 989-295-6632. Or you can visit them on their website at pinehavenassistedliving.com. That's pinehavenassistedliving.com for more information. Now, back to the Level Up Life.
What I've learned, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before. So I did Carol Janney, she's a doctor, a PhD at Michigan State. She came up and did a mental health piece. And she had, it was like doing some data. And so she was getting data from she had nonprofit groups that were supportive of people with mental health, people that have mental health issues themselves, so clients, funders, so all the big foundations were in the room, and then families of people with mental illness. And we all were supposed to figure out, where do you fit? And I was like, well, I could go with the family, because we have a lot of people with substance use disorder. I could go hang out with all my friends in the nonprofit world. Marissa was there, and Kathy Dollard, and all these people. And I couldn't really fit with the foundations, right? And then there was the people living with experience. And the whole thing was about stigma and how we're trying to reduce stigma. And I was like, I could very easily be sitting there, because I could have been the housewife that was dead on the kitchen floor from suicide. And everybody would be so surprised. Like, Camile, she's so happy. She's that light that walks in the room, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't want to go over there. I want to be with my friends over here that help those people, right? And I was like, why are you here? It's to reduce stigma. And so I walked over and I sat down and we all talked. And one of the things they wanted you to, was a question is like, what do you want to be referred as? And so it was like people living with experience. That was a while ago, over a decade ago. And it's nice because that's actually the way sometimes we describe different things. So we talked and I said, I didn't want to come sit with you guys because I have depression. I have substance use disorder. I totally fit here. And I could be the housewife that's, dead on the kitchen floor from suicide. And so then we're all done and everybody's spokesperson stood up and I'm amongst my peers that know about me being in substance, that I have substance use disorder. They don't have a clue that I've tried to kill myself when I was a teen. Thank goodness I didn't, that I survived, that I've had maybe, 3 other dark moments in my 65 years where suicide ideation was there. And he stands up and he da-da-da-da-da, and he goes, and he points down and he goes, and she could be the housewife that you find dead on the kitchen floor from suicide. And I was like, oh, the cat's out of the bag, right? And so I forget what it was that made me really think of, the whole timing of suicide. It's kind of like I hope this doesn't offend anyone, and it's just my opinion, but it's almost like a craving. Like you have a thought, and if I've always felt like, so your brain has all these gears going around in it, right? Mm-hmm. Some of us, the teeth are missing on the gears. Some are born with teeth missing, right? Might be genetic. Some trauma happens and teeth get knocked off. Yep. I probably have, 5 or 6 on all those gears, teeth missing. Maybe more, I don't know. I have friends that depression and suicide is a big part of the work that they need to do to stay away from. They have a lot of teeth missing on their gears. So when those gears are going around, there's like this trap door in the bottom of your brain. This is totally me. I've always wanted to do some art. Yeah. Like I want to do a cast of my face. I got a visualization and have all this gears up here. So there's this trap door, and that has to do with the stress in your life. For me, that October, that puppy was just going like this. And for some people, it might stay open a few days. Christmas time for some people, the holidays, all that stuff, our expectations and everything. So you have this trap door. So if the gears are going around and the tooth is missing at the exact same time that door opens, that might just go, and if the means is in their hand, that's when it happens. It's a timing thing. Because I have people that when I've said this, they're like, oh, because they've been in that place where they might have had the means in their hand. They were thinking about it, but their life wasn't in that disastrous place. Or, It has to have just all those components. Or there's times where they didn't have the means and it passed, right. And for some people, it might be a daily thing that they think about it. Mine isn't daily. It's not even yearly. Sometimes it'll just ticker tape. I call it the ticker tape. I think I'll just drive my car into that embankment. And I'm like, whoa. And then now I know what's going on. And so what do you, where'd that come? Sometimes I don't know. It's like going by, it's like, oh, let's go. We did the construction summit 2 weeks ago, the recovery friendly thing. And my person in Lansing, she knows I'm in recovery 37 years. And we got all done. And I was so relieved that it was over. I said, I still think, let's go have a drink. And she looked at me and I was like, I would never do it. But the thought came. It doesn't always come when I finish something and it's a big celebration. But, thank goodness I do what I do every day, because then that thought didn't become obsession. And then suddenly I'm starting to salivate. And next thing you know, let's go stop over here or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I really think that process. And so I try to tell people, especially people, I've had way too many people die of suicide, not just overdose. Was it overdose? Was it suicide? But actually die from suicide. Friends, and then have experienced children who's had parents that and they didn't love me. And it's like, it's not that they didn't love you. And I've had one volunteer who's like, they weren't in their right mind. It's like, exactly, right? And there's nothing that anybody could do. I had to tell my daughter this. I was holding her and I said, if I ever end up drunk again and relapse, or if I ever die of suicide, there's nothing you could do to prevent it. And there's nothing that you've ever done or could do that would cause it.
Right.
Because I think so many people
You
that
don't
are
want her to
left
carry
behind from suicide, what could I have done? I could have done this. If I just called, or if I'd done that, or whatever. And there's nothing unless you want to strap them down,
Right.
you know, and still, you know.
I think, and there's help like out there, people to talk to. There's all that stuff.
988.
Yes, 988. And I think I've experienced those dark clouds where it's like, you know, I like to, I guess the way I think in a lot of analogies and to explain it, to visualize things. So to me, when I was having those thoughts, it was like I had cinder blocks on my feet as shoes, and I was in the water just trying to keep my head up, and each, you know, I'd go underwater, and I'm trying as hard as I can to just stay above water, take a breath when I can, and it's just pulling me down. Like, just life is whatever it is. It could be my actions, which in my scenario, it was a lot of like the way I had lived that had gotten me to that point. You mentioned avoidance. That was a big deal for me with my dad died, my grandpa died, my grandma died 3 years back to back. And that's when my legal issues all started. After all three went through the process, that's when I got caught the first time. But it started with my grandpa, and it took me 4 years to get in trouble. But these were ways I was coping with that. I didn't have the skills to be like, and it's cultural. It's a little bit of our society with, in my situation, men. We're taught to be strong.
Yeah. Don't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Don't cry.
Somebody's got to be strong. It should be the man. And I was like, I am man. You know, I'll be the strong one. I'll be the one to help everybody else. And so I put all that, and nobody else did it. But I'm like literally making the concrete for my feet. You know, I'm making the cinder blocks throughout my actions, and that's what leads me to, you know, those moments where I won't go into details, but it was like, well, I'm gonna load up an extra amount, and this time I'm using, you know, see what happens.
Right.
And I wake up on the floor, and it's like, well,
I'm still here.
I'm here. I must still, you know. And it wasn't, for me, it wasn't like, you know, in that moment, it wasn't like, I don't want to be here.
Right.
It was just, it was like
Russian roulette. Let's
I don't really
spin the wheel.
I didn't really care what happened to me. I didn't see a value in my existence. This weight was pulling me down. The pain was so great that I just was like, whatever, you know. And I made a lot of risky decisions because of that, drinking and driving, where I was completely blacked out. I didn't care what happened to me, and I wasn't thinking about what would happen to someone else. So, and then I did have the moments where I was like, you know, probably like what you were saying, if I would have had the means, I would have done it. Because even after my overdose, when I say my last overdose, the last time I went down, the ambulance came, all that. I knew I had drugs on me. I knew but they released me from the hospital. So I'm free man, and I'm like, that's when I know what's coming. I will go to jail for this, but when's that hammer going to come down, and do I really care about? So from that point on, it was just risky behavior, you know? So I feel, I you know, the darkness just, and I agree with you with having the means, if you have the means in that perfect storm moment. Because there was times that perfect, I thought I had the means, but it wasn't enough drugs to get me there. So, and it's all.
I'm so glad nothing ever happened.
I'm so
you
glad
got to
you're
this
still
point
here.
and that you're still here.
Yeah.
I really believe, as far as we're both going to be so excited to be working with the recovery pod in the jail, maybe, hopefully. I have, ever since I started working in grief, I would have to say, and most people that have struggled with addiction, I would say you could trace it back to something that happened, that they didn't have that support to go, wow, let's get through this. It was an option. Sometimes it's just peer pressure. Here, try this. And if you're set up genetically to have the allergy, then that first time it might be like, oh, here we go.
I think it does have
so it's tricky.
It comes back to trauma because I can trace mine back from those deaths to my parents' divorce to back further because my dad was a drunk and he was abusive to my mom. So I remember vividly these moments where every single muscle in my body tensed up. I was so scared. My entire world was on fire in these moments, and I had no way to put it out, right? I was a child, and there's, I haven't really went back any further. What's back even further, So
I'd love to have some type of data that could survey people that are incarcerated, where their initial grief moment was. Because whether it's grief isn't always about somebody dying.
Right.
It can be you not having the family that you see that sits down every night and has dinner together and doesn't have abuse and it could be grieving what you never had. It could be grieving what you wanted and never had, the same kind of thing.
An expectation.
It can be death. It can be divorce. It can be moving 7 times and having to leave your best friend that you just finally made or whatever that is. It has many different faces. And our first instinct is to deny it. Oh, that's not that big a deal.
It may not be. And then same thing from an outside perspective where it's not something that wouldn't be something that's traumatic to me. And we're kind of looking at this in the same way with a different name, grief trauma.
Right.
Like that 16-year-old girl who just got her license all of a sudden gets flat tire. She doesn't know how to change. She's in a dead zone, no phone call.
That's terrifying.
Someone pulls over to help, or are they helping? Like that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be traumatic for me because I know how to change a tire. I'm going to get out, set up my cones, do my thing, whatever. But that's where we can't really define. And I think it's easy to be like, I think that's that judgment.
Judge it, right. I was just going to say.
To be like why is that trauma for you?
Yeah.
But I try and sit back and I'm like, wow, whatever it is, sorry you had to go through that. And that's where that circling back to leading with empathy, right?
I love Brene Brown's. We showed her that the one with where the bear goes down in the hole and the fox goes down in the hole and sits next to him, versus the goat or the llama, whatever it is, just looks down in the hole. Oh, it's dark down there. Want a sandwich? And being able to sit next to someone and not try to change how they feel, and not one up them with, oh, I did that and then da-da-da, but just being in that space. It's the greatest tool that I learned or skill from the Grief Center, is because as an adult, especially when you're with children, you don't want them to feel pain. And you want to rescue them, or you want to say, but it's okay. You still have your mom. Whatever it is that we do as adults to actually make us feel comfortable in that moment, versus just sitting in the silence and the pause and giving that space. Kids take way longer to process and bring their thoughts. And if you interrupt that pause, you might have just missed the nugget. They were finally going to tell you what it is. And then you don't judge it. And then they go, wow, I could have this feeling and they aren't going to change me.
You know who Mel Robbins is, I'm sure. Yep. The Let Them theory.
I saw the book, and a friend of mine, we were, Nancy Money, we were at the mall, and she was like, oh, my daughter just got me this.
It's empowering to realize I am not responsible for anybody else's healing. they are.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's
also,
so hard.
it's one of the hardest things to do, to watch. Like, I have friends that I grew up with that are in active addiction, and, you know, they've asked me for money or whatever. And it's like, I just want to go grab them, put them in detox. Like, this is how I change my thinking. Tell them, but their path is not my path. It's not gonna work for them. So to just sit back and be like, I found my best approach. I'll text this guy, and I'm like, hey brother, I hope you're doing well. I'm thinking about you, and I love you. And there, you know, there's been, you scroll on Messenger, there's probably 3 weeks of unanswered, unseen messages. But imagine what he's gonna feel when he gets on there. I try and relate. Like, if I was in that, someone's messaging me every day,
somebody's thinking
just telling me they love me. Like, why does this guy even care?
Right.
Sometimes that alone will like pull someone out of a dark place. So
My motto is, as long as there's a pulse, there's hope.
Yeah.
And I've got a young gal right now that I'm friends with and that I have been trying to help. And she was like, oh, I used again. And I was like, you're still alive. And you're doing something today to help yourself. Or, you know, you're going to go to a meeting or whatever it is. And I think she was so shocked that I wasn't like, really? Again? What are you thinking?
That's her expectation. Right?
And at the same time, I'm not going to say I haven't done that with her, because I'm like, oh, come on. Now, you know, so if you just gave yourself a little bit, and I think the recovery friendly workplace thing that I've learned, right? That there's 22 million people in recovery. And I thought, well, how many are doing it the way I do it? So I look up how many people do 12 step. 2 million. There's 20 million people doing it differently, right? And as soon as I try to make somebody do it my way, I'm shutting the door. You know, and I love that I've learned more about medical assisted treatment. I love that the 1016 Recovery Network that I work for, their inpatient is abstinence based. One of the two in the state, Dawn Farms, and that we get criticized for that. But we actually, in our outpatient, will work with people that are, or, you know, it's called MAP, medical assisted treatment. I love a friend of mine the other day who's like my poster child for teaching me that, wow, you can do it that way successfully. He's like, I like to think of it as medical assisted recovery. My recovery looks different than yours, but it's still recovery.
Well, and then so in my experience, like, I'm all for, I don't care how a person quits, doing what, or change, you know, like, I know people who still use certain substances that don't get them back to their drug of choice.
Right.
And I can't do that.
I can't either.
So for me, it has to be abstinence.
Yep.
And I've used the others. I've tried to substitute with those things, and that's what it was for me. It was a substitution, and led me back to, and I've done the medically assisted therapy, and it was a diversion.
Right.
So
this has opened my mind, because I used to be like, oh, that's the bit. Yeah. And so at least I'm in a place where it also allowed me to say to my friend, I'm just glad you're telling me, and I'm glad that you're doing what you need to do for yourself today, rather than put my little, well, it's got to be this way, and it has to be just abstinence, and I use that voice. It's like my dad's voice, you know. I remember my daughter, she's like, Grandpa doesn't sound that way. And I'm like, he does to me.
In my head. Yeah.
He's a pillar of the community. Everybody loves him. I loved him. But when you're a child of someone that is that kind of, you know, it's not always easy.
Right.
You know, although at the same time I'm blessed. So I always got to be careful with that. But just the idea of, I've learned so much in the last year of my 38 of being in recovery, that I think has allowed me to be more compassionate, empathetic, and considerate of other people's differences. And they don't have to do it the way I'm. Now, I would struggle with somebody that said, well, I can still drink a fifth a night, because to me, you're still dangerous to society, and you shouldn't be driving.
Right.
But, you know, I don't know. I would have thought, boy, this is where I am. I'm just going to coast now in my recovery because this is the way I do it. And it is the way I do it, the way I practice mine. But it has my outlook and openness to the way other people do things, which I'm learning is 20 million other people besides my 2 million that I go, we do it like this or whatever. I mean, I went to the World Convention of a big 12-step thing in July, and we had 30,000 people there. They actually had a neurodivergence in recovery, which I was like, I sent it to my daughter. She's like, neurodivergence is our superpower. They had a workplace recovery. This is an international convention. We had at least 10,000 people on a outdoor event conference at a block party for 4 hours dancing crazy.
It's awesome.
And so we're still the partiers. We're still the what are we going to do next kind of people. Yep. But I'm going to have just about the same money I had in my pocket from the night before the next day, and I'm going to know where I was and who I've been with, and I'm not a menace to society, and hopefully I'm somebody that's inspiring change, however that looks.
Well, and I think about the memories you get to keep when you remember what you did, and really that's what we take with us. We take our memories and we leave behind our impact on others. And that's where, I'm so glad you came on the show because you have a proven impact already on a ton of people. Can we really even quantify our impact too? Because I have people come up to me that I'm like, well, I did what? And they're hugging me and I'm like, well, and that's just living a life of transparency. This is me.
Right.
With the goal to help others, and just inspire change in people's mindsets when it comes to addiction, when it comes to mental health. And all of these conversations we have on this show let's bring, we're all the same. Let's come together because, you could be the CEO of a company and have the same sort of thought processes I have and be in the same dark places I have. It does, social status, none of that. It doesn't know those boundaries. So we are all more alike, and when we can focus on our similarities rather than our differences, the world would be so much better place. So I appreciate you coming on, Camile.
You bet. Probably a final thing I'll say, my same guy that used to say the Gucci thing, he used to say, when you have more and you try to help somebody who has less, even though sometimes that can be relative, but that is struggling or whatever, and the definition of a miracle is in that moment, and you both walk away with more. So it's a selfish thing that I help other people.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like a codependent, I have to help people so I can say, oh, look at me, but it keeps me out of being in self-pity about anything, right? And early on, they said, if you are struggling, the best thing you can do is reach out and help someone else. And I see you do that all the time. Got to give it away
to keep it.
Absolutely.
And it's
simple, but
it's
profound.
one of those things that until you've truly helped someone, I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that can relate to this. But when you help someone and they create change in their life, whether it's because of something you said, reaching down to them when they were low, that feeling of fulfillment is something, it's not surface level. It's not anything you can put a price tag on. It's not something that you can get in any other way, but it's fulfilling for your soul.
Right.
It's a deep level of fulfillment that just can't be replicated in any other way.
And we don't have a monopoly on it. My experiences with recovery is also with the Grief Center. But we were just both at Wake Up, and you had the people from The Rock, Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
You had
Kelsey,
and you had Catherine Tate from Legacy Center. All three of, and you could have another 30 people up there that do what we do in recovery and with fitness and with grief and with workplace recovery with a different face on it, but it's the same stuff. And we're fortunate to be, I mean, I've lived other places too and haven't been as in depth as I am in Midland, obviously, but we're really blessed in Midland and Saginaw. I mean, in Bay City, I'm part of this whole region, and there's the same people in those places and spaces as well that just have different faces that have the same huge hearts that I'm blessed enough to be part of.
There's a lot of us out there in recovery, not in recovery.
Right. And there's plenty of opportunities to, the world needs people that are willing to be there for others. I'm seeing the repercussions of COVID and stuff, and it's still here.
We're healing though.
All the other stuff, and just take a breath and try to be from your own center and heart and be true to yourself. And it's okay that people are different and think differently. And you think, what are they thinking? It's like they're thinking differently than me, and that's okay.
Yep.
Thank goodness, in a way. Right.
It'd
be really
glad
boring.
We're all different.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in. Change starts from the inside, right? If we want to change the world, we have to change ourselves. We all have to do better. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being part of the change, part of what we're trying to do. Like, subscribe, share. Thank you.